or to what extent you do not want to liberalize. This will be a significant advance over the current position. And this is one of the essential features of TPP, although I must add, TPP is being negotiated more secretively. So no one really knows what the final agreement is going to be, but from various accounts, these are the essential features. The second, and this is important, it is not only liberalization, but it also seeks to bring in certain new values. Now, what are those values? One is food safety. For example, so far, WTO, the SPS agreement, it's called Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures Agreement, gave a fair amount of leeway for countries to regulate their import of agricultural products. Now, food safety, on the other hand, largely due to American leadership in this issue, they are saying that it should be based on scientific analysis. On the other hand, the EU has given precedence to precautionary principle, like GMOs. If there is a certain body of opinion in a country that GMOs should not be imported, then you give value to that opinion. But on the other hand, another body of opinion is that if scientific analysis proves that it is not harmful, then you should allow import. This is one aspect. The second, in terms of new value, is IPR. Now, TPP seeks to further strengthen the WTO agreement called TRIPS, Trade in Intellectual Property Rights, because this agreement brought about certain compromise between developed countries and developing countries, between the interests of customers, between the interests of consumers, between the interests of innovators. So it gave a certain length of time. For example, patents, you gave 20-year protection. Copyrights, you gave 50-year protection for various works. Now, this discussion is sought to be now changed somewhat towards protecting more the rights of innovator. Now, this is another value that is being sought to be introduced. It is also seeking to introduce labor and environment standards, not that countries object to labor and environment standards, but to make them part of a trade agreement is a new concept that is emerging. The third essential feature of this agreement is that it curtails space for development. What do I mean by that? Like, for example, if you are wanting to allow investment, let's say, into India, if you insist on technology transfer, that is seen as a performance requirement which should be disciplined. So there are already, as per the WTO agreement earlier, some discipline on export performance requirement, like you cannot say there should be local content. These are already prohibited. But TPP seeks to go beyond further in disciplining local performance requirements. There are also going to be certain disciplines in TPP on state trading enterprises, that they should be commercially neutral. Similarly, on government procurement, because government procurement, many countries use as a way of assisting certain enterprises or certain sections of society. TPP is seeking to discipline them further. Finally, the fourth aspect that may be brought into TPP is the involvement of investor-state settlement dispute. The WTO, as of now, allows for only dispute between states. Of course, a state can take up a complaint of a certain industry, but it is on behalf of that industry, the state takes it up. On the other hand, TPP will bring in investor-state dispute settlement. Not that we do not have already, I must clarify this. India has entered into investment agreements in many of which investor-state dispute settlement is already there. But this is now an issue which has acquired worldwide attention, and there is a rethink. But TPP seems to be taking a decisive view by introducing this into world trade agreements. Now, what is the progress of TPP? More than 25 rounds have been held. In fact, after the 19th round, they've stopped calling it any more rounds. But every alternate month, ministerial meetings are being held. and you can say more than 80 to 90% seems ready. Expectation is it could well conclude next year. What is seen as a great question mark is the US congressional approval. Will they get it? There is also an associated trade promotion authority bill which needs to get through the Congress. The questions are, will all that happen? On the other hand, key elements of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. There are some guidelines which have been adopted by all the 16 countries. Again, this calls for a modern, high quality, and mutually beneficial economic partnership. It will recognize ASEAN centrality, etc. I'll not go through all the details, but it's important to see what its coverage is vis-a-vis TPP. Yes, it will cover goods, it will cover services, it will cover investment, IPRs, and competition, but there are no specific reference to state trading enterprises. There are no references to government procurement, environment, or labor. On IPR, it talks about reducing IP-related barriers to trade and investment, but not on further strengthening environment. I want to make clear here, I do not want to draw any preference at this stage for TPP-like disciplines or RCEP-like disciplines, because RCEP is less intrusive. This is really for the students from all these faculties that I mentioned to debate carefully. Because earlier, there was a certain model which was indicated as the production sharing model that is emerging in the world. An iPad, how is it produced, and who gets the share of how much? You saw that the bulk of intellectual property going to the owner. Now, in TPP, what will that happen? Will it reinforce, entrench such practices? Will it further improve the role of the investor? This is something you have to debate. Again, there are very important countries who are participants in these negotiations, who have done very well in East Asia and Asia Pacific. Like ambassadors of these countries are present here. So I must be clear that we must also respect their model of development. They have been able to eradicate poverty, reduce poverty through that model. And their idea, by joining TPP, like Vietnam, like Brunei, like Singapore, like Malaysia, they have already advanced quite far in terms of their external trade, in terms of their poverty alleviation, by an export-led model which has brought about a lot of spillovers, which the economy has benefited from, which the people have benefited from. But we also have to look at what is the status of India, what are our requirements in terms of IPR, in terms of various other issues. You will need to look at these issues very carefully, because there are two models emerging. One is the TPP model, which will further strengthen and enhance some of the disciplines that WTO is already having, and they are saying these are 21st century issues. Now, from the Indian perspective, as well as from the perspective of several other developing countries, we will have to see what is the model that will suit us. And more important, if we think some other model will suit us, then time is of essence. We have to negotiate RCEP very quickly and demonstrate that an alternative model, less intrusive model, that is more workable for us is possible. It requires not just the government to do this, because government can only provide leadership. It requires the industry, the NGOs, the pharmaceutical industry, and so many other stakeholders to sit together to see what is good in terms of possible international trading and investment framework that we should be supportive of. Otherwise, as I said, the negotiation deadlines are proceeding. And the last aspect that I would like to talk about is the key elements of FTAAP. Recently, China, in the APEC summit in Beijing, took the initiative of advancing this FTAAP, but it is not just the Chinese initiative. In fact, it has been on APEC agenda for quite a while, starting in 2006. But the APEC summit in Beijing has decided to launch a strategic study on this and to report by end of 2016. Again, it talks about comprehensive, high quality, and incorporate and address next generation trade and investment issues. This is crucial. Next generation trade and investment issues. What should they be? We need to have an internal debate. We need to not only have that internal debate, take a national consensus, and then use our diplomatic apparatus to sell that model to a wider world. Now, it also says FTAAP will be realized outside of APEC process, partly because APEC itself is a non-binding kind of a forum. Also, this would seem to imply, as I said earlier, membership not necessarily restricted to APEC or may include even all of APEC. The task force undertaking the study talks of receiving contribution from interested APEC economies. So I guess this can include India as well, depending on what the study outcomes are. But the roadmap adopted in Beijing recognizes TPP, RCEP as possible pathways to FTAAP, and that APEC will remain an incubator. Now, will the pathways meet or at least have a symbiotic existence? An interesting question, but somewhat early to answer in my view, and a great deal will depend on TPP's progress and, more importantly, RCEP's ability to come up with an alternative model. Absent such a meeting, Professor Jagdish Bhagwati has commented that TPP could prove divisive in Asia, just as has happened through various FTAs in Latin America. So my final slide, what should be India's strategy? I feel it's very important for India to remain part of global trade and investment policy trends than getting sidelined. And for this necessary, as I said, it's not just the government, but we need to have the entire stakeholder contributing to that debate. And I feel, firstly, for India, we need to engage actively in RCEP negotiations. Of course, participating actively in such negotiations would require not purely a defensive posture, that's important, but also work for certain offensive interests. And I heard the presentation by our Minister Gadkari, which was so inspiring. I do hope through various measures being taken by the government, including for the Make in India campaign, we improve our competitiveness. This is crucial. Unless we improve our competitiveness, gain certain areas where we could make concessions so that we can also get some concessions. Otherwise, our current position whereby we export around $300 billion worth of goods, we import $450 million of goods. This is not sustainable. So we have to be able to improve that export-import balance by improving our competitiveness, which becomes very essential in making use of the campaign that the government has launched. And finally, I feel becoming a member of APEC needs consideration. It will be important for us to become familiar with evolving global best practices and evolving new disciplines in diverse areas. In fact, this is a subject on which the organization in which I am a vice chairman is currently working on to see how, what are the merits, what are the possible downsides, and what we should be doing. But thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Seshadri, for that very illuminating talk. May I thank all the panelists here on this table. I am sure you would have all enjoyed our presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Mathur, Mr. Ranade, and Mr. Radhakrishnan, and Ambassador Seshadri. Now we break for lunch, and we'll meet after lunch.
So before we break for lunch, may I invite Dr. Vidya to felicitate our speakers. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the extremely interesting presentations. Thank you, Dr. Vidya. I'd just like to make a quick announcement regarding lunch. Students and faculty are requested to proceed to the canteen for lunch. Guests and directors and biases invited to the convention room opposite this auditorium.